Commander Vex Talon stood nervously at the docking bay observation deck, 4 of his 6 appendages twitching with anxiety. The imminent arrival of the human cadets had the entire Galactic Military Academy in an uproar. Rumors about these Deathworlders had circulated for months, but now they would be face to face with the creatures from that cursed gravity well called Earth. "They are coming. The human transport has entered our space," shouted Lieutenant Zargeth, his luminescent scales flashing in excitement. Vex rolled his compound eyes. "Yes, I can see the monitors too, Lieutenant. Calm yourself. We are representatives of the Academy's finest instruction corps. Let's at least pretend we have some dignity." The lieutenant's scales dimmed slightly. "My apologies, Commander. But, you must admit, it's quite extraordinary. Creatures that evolved on a world with 9.8 meters per second squared of gravitational pull. Not to mention the atmospheric toxins, radiation levels, and temperature extremes." "I'm well aware of Earth's charming qualities," Vex replied dryly. "That's precisely why we have spent 3 cycles reconfiguring an entire wing of the Academy for their special requirements." The transport ship, sleek and surprisingly compact for interstellar travel, glided gracefully into the docking bay. Vex noted with professional interest how the pilot expertly manipulated the craft, despite the unfamiliar gravitational conditions of Nexus Station. The ship's exterior bore the emblem of the United Earth Defense Force, a stylized globe with a shield, which Vex found amusingly literal. "Commander," a voice chirped from his communication device, "we have received the final roster. 20 human cadets will be joining us this semester." 20. Vex felt his primary stomach clench. The Academy Board had initially agreed to accept 5, maybe 10 at most. But 20? The resources required to accommodate them would be astronomical. "Very well," he replied. "Have their quarters been prepared according to specifications? Remember, they require significant rest periods in horizontal positions." "Yes, Commander. The human wing is fully operational. We have installed the water-based cleaning facilities they requested, reinforced all furniture to withstand their density, and adjusted atmospheric controls to their preferred oxygen-nitrogen mixture. And the temperature?" Vex pressed. "Maintained at what they call room temperature, which is apparently 22 degrees on their Celsius scale, practically freezing by Khazarian standards, but the environmental suits should compensate for any instructors who must enter their section." Vex nodded in satisfaction. Despite his reservations about integrating these creatures into the Academy, he took pride in his thoroughness. The airlock on the transport hissed open, and Vex straightened his posture, extending to his full height of nearly 3 meters. "Remember," he addressed the assembled greeting committee, "according to their cultural briefing, humans appreciate direct eye contact and firm physical contact between right upper appendages as a greeting. They call it a handshake." One by one, the human cadets emerged from their vessel. Vex had studied human physiology extensively, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of these beings. They walked with a confident stride that seemed to defy the station's lighter gravity, their bodies moving with alarming efficiency. Their skin tones varied widely, as did their heights and proportions, though all fell within the parameters outlined in the briefing materials. "Welcome to Nexus Station and the Galactic Military Academy," Vex announced, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard human English. "I am Commander Vex Talon, Chief Academic Officer. On behalf of all species in the Galactic Confederation, we are pleased to welcome the first human class." A human with darker skin and closely cropped hair stepped forward, at Marcus Jackson, squad leader for Earth Contingent. "Thank you for the welcome, Commander." The human extended its right upper appendage. Bracing himself, Vex reached forward and engaged in the handshake ritual. The strength in the human's grip was startling, but Vex maintained his composure, remembering not to release until the human did. Another cultural note from the briefing. "We are excited to be here," the human continued. "The Earth Defense Force considers this exchange program essential to building strong interspecies relations within the Confederation." "Yes, quite," Vex replied. "We are equally enthusiastic about the knowledge exchange." Now, if you will follow Lieutenant Zargeth, he will show you to your quarters. We have attempted to recreate Earth conditions as accurately as possible. I'm sure it will be fine, Commander, another human said, this one with longer hair tied back and lighter skin. We have all trained in various atmospheric conditions. Adaptability is part of our skill set. Vex regarded this human with increased interest. You are Cadet Alara Donovan, specialized in xenobiology and combat medicine. Ah, yes, your academic records are quite impressive, Cadet Donovan. The human's facial features rearranged into what Vex recognized as a smile. Apparently, this was a positive response. As the humans followed Zargeth toward their quarters, Vex overheard two of them conversing in low tones. Did you see how they all flinched when we stepped off the transport? One whispered. Yeah, replied another, suppressing what sounded like laughter. 10 credits says they have got us all labeled as dangerous predators by nightfall. You are on. I give it 2 hours, tops. Vex pretended not to hear, but inwardly acknowledged the accuracy of their assessment. The Academy staff had indeed been briefed about humans' predatory evolutionary path. Forward-facing eyes alone marked them as hunters, not to mention their alarming dental structure and carnivorous dietary requirements. Back in his office, Vex reviewed the training schedule for the human cadets. Their first practical exercise would be tomorrow, a standard combat simulation designed to assess their tactical thinking and physical capabilities. Normally used for first-year cadets of all species, it would provide valuable baseline data on human performance. Computer display historical performance metrics for the Alpha 7 combat simulation, Vex commanded. The holographic display flickered to life, showing average completion times, success rates, and injury statistics across various species. The Khazarians, with their superior strength and resilience, typically performed best, followed closely by the Thracian reptiloids. The more cerebral species like the Venturi and Quarians usually compensated for physical limitations with strategic brilliance. Where would humans fall on this spectrum? Their physical parameters were unremarkable by Confederation standards, weaker than Khazarians, slower than Thracians, less agile than the avian Erosi. Yet Earth's military history suggested formidable fighting capability. A notification chimed, interrupting Vex's thoughts. It was a request from the human cadets, forwarded by an increasingly flustered Lieutenant Zargeth. Commander, the humans are requesting access to the recreational facilities, Zargeth reported. Specifically, the combat training area. Already. Vex clicked in surprise. They have barely had time to settle into their quarters. They claim they need to work out the kinks after their long journey in the transport. Their exact words were, "We need to stretch our legs before we cramp up." Vex considered this. Physical exercise after extended confinement seemed reasonable, though the timing was unusual by Academy standards. Most new arrivals took at least a full cycle to acclimate to the station's environment. Very well. Grant them access, but have monitoring protocols in place. I want to observe their capabilities firsthand. Yes, Commander. And there's one more thing. Zargeth hesitated. Go on. They have requested information about the station's gravitational settings. Specifically, they asked if we could increase gravity in their training area to match Earth conditions. Vex stared at the lieutenant. They wanted heavier? The station operates at 0.7 Earth gravity as a compromise for all species. Yes, sir. They said they are concerned about muscle atrophy during their stay if they don't maintain their usual training regimen. Fascinating, Vex mused. Approve the request for their designated areas only. And have Medical Officer Trilpor observe their first session. I want detailed physiological data. 2 hours later, Vex watched through the monitoring system as the human cadets assembled in the combat training area. They had changed from their formal uniforms into what appeared to be minimal athletic wear, exposing alarming amounts of their skin. The gravity in the room had been adjusted as requested. Are they not affected by the increased gravitational pull? Asked Medical Officer Trilpor, her antenna twitching in confusion. Apparently not, Vex replied, equally perplexed. This is their natural environment. The humans began their exercise routine with what they called warm-ups, stretching and light calisthenics that gradually increased in intensity. Then, without warning, their activities escalated dramatically. Some humans began lifting weighted objects repeatedly in various configurations. Others engaged in rapid locomotion around the facility's perimeter. Two pairs squared off on padded mats, engaging in what appeared to be ritualized combat. Great galaxies, whispered Trilpor. Look at the impact force they are generating. Vex watched in astonishment as one human threw another to the ground with alarming velocity. The fallen human, rather than showing distress, immediately sprang back up and continued the bout. Are they not injuring each other? Vex asked. Their vital signs show elevated heart rates and respiratory function, but no indicators of significant trauma, Trilpor replied, studying her medical scanner. Their skeletal reinforcement and muscular elasticity appear to absorb impacts that would fracture bones in most Confederation species. As if to demonstrate this point, one of the running humans suddenly increased speed dramatically, sprinting at full force before leaping into the air and being caught by two others. They repeated this exercise multiple times. What possible combat application does that maneuver have? Vex wondered aloud. I believe they call it trust building, Trilpor offered. According to the cultural briefing, humans place high value on social cohesion and unit integrity. The exercise session continued for nearly 2 hours. By the end, the human skin glistened with moisture, another unsettling biological function, but they showed no signs of serious fatigue. Their endurance is remarkable, Trilpor noted, especially considering they have just completed interstellar travel and are in an unfamiliar environment. Vex nodded slowly. Adjust the combat simulation parameters for tomorrow. I suspect our standard metrics may not apply. The following morning, Vex arrived early at the simulation chamber. The Alpha 7 combat scenario had been a cornerstone of Academy training for decades, designed to test cadets under pressure without placing them in genuine danger. The holographic enemies, obstacle courses, and tactical challenges were calibrated to push each species to their limits while remaining theoretically completable. The human cadets arrived precisely on schedule, now dressed in their standard training uniforms and reinforced fabric in muted earth tones with their names and Earth Defense Force insignia prominently displayed. Good morning, Commander Cadet Jackson greeted. We are looking forward to today's exercise. Yes, well, Vex replied, this simulation is designed to assess your baseline capabilities. Please understand that it's calibrated for a wide range of species, so if you find it too challenging. We will manage, interrupted Kadadavan with that same disconcerting smile. We reviewed the briefing materials last night. Vex nodded uncertainly. Very well. You will enter in teams of 4. The objective is to navigate the simulated environment, neutralize holographic adversaries, and reach the extraction point within the time limit. The system will track your performance metrics automatically. The first team of humans entered the chamber, and Vex joined the other instructors in the observation room. The simulation activated, generating a hostile landscape with limited visibility, hazardous terrain, and numerous enemy combatants. What happened next would become legendary at the Academy. The humans moved through the simulation with shocking efficiency, communicating with subtle hand gestures and minimal vocalization. Their tactical approach was unlike anything Vex had seen, neither the brute force favored by Khazarians nor the methodical precision of the Venturi. They are improvising, remarked tactical instructor Grex Vor. Look how they are adapting their formation based on changing conditions. Indeed, the humans seem to operate with a fluidity that the simulation's metrics struggled to categorize. When faced with a ravine too wide to cross directly, they didn't retreat to find a designated crossing point as expected. Instead, one human braced against a wall, interlacing fingers to create a foothold, while another ran toward them, stepped into the improvised boost, and was launched across the gap. A rope was then secured, allowing the others to cross. That's not in the solution parameters, Vex said, checking the simulation guidelines. The designated route requires a 200-meter detour to the north. Efficient, though, Grexvor admitted. They have saved nearly 6 minutes with that maneuver. The holographic adversaries posed little challenge. The humans neutralized them with precision, using simulated weapons with remarkable accuracy. More surprisingly, when one human's weapon malfunctioned, they immediately switched to hand-to-hand combat without hesitation, subduing the holographic enemy with targeted strikes to what must be vulnerable anatomical points. Their combat programming is extensive, noted another instructor. Look at the variety of techniques they are employing. Not programming, Vex corrected. Training. They don't have neural implants or combat downloads. Everything you are seeing was physically practiced and memorized. This revelation was met with stunned silence. The idea of learning combat maneuvers through repetition alone seemed primitive, yet the results were undeniable. The first team reached the extraction point in 17.4 minutes, shattering the previous record of 26.8 minutes held by an elite Khazarian squad. As the simulation reset for the next team, Vex studied the performance metrics. The humans had scored exceptionally high in adaptability, combat efficiency, and team coordination. Their only average scores were in areas involving technology interaction, which was understandable given their unfamiliarity with Confederation systems. Should we increase the difficulty? Asked Grexvor. Rex considered this. Yes, activate the beta protocols for the remaining teams. The beta-level simulation was typically reserved for final-year cadets, featuring more numerous enemies, environmental hazards, and complex objectives. Vex was curious to see how the humans would respond to a genuine challenge. The second team entered, led by Cadet Donovan. The simulation began, immediately presenting them with a toxic atmosphere scenario requiring oxygen masks. The cadets quickly donned the equipment and proceeded into a structure filled with hostiles. What happened next defied explanation. Upon encountering a numerically superior force, the humans didn't retreat to a defensible position as tactical doctrine would suggest. Instead, Cadet Donovan pointed to ventilation ducts above, and within seconds the team had scrambled into the ceiling infrastructure. "They are bypassing the entire central chamber," Grexvor exclaimed. "That's not even registered as a viable path." "The ducts shouldn't support their weight," Vex said, checking the simulation parameters. "The system calculates those as non-traversable routes for any species larger than Quarian juveniles. Yet traverse them they did, emerging behind the enemy position and executing a perfect ambush." The rest of the simulation proceeded similarly, with the humans consistently finding solutions that circumvented expected pathways. This team completed the course in 19.2 minutes, slower than the first team, but still well under any previous record for the beta-level simulation. As the final human teams completed their runs with similarly impressive results, Vex found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about these creatures. Their performance defied standard classification. They weren't the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced species in the Confederation, yet they displayed a combination of physical capability, tactical ingenuity, and adaptive thinking that was genuinely unique. Later that evening, Vex submitted his preliminary report to the Academy Board, concluding with an assessment that would soon become famous throughout the Galactic Confederation. Regarding the integration of human cadets into Academy training protocols, initial data suggests we have severely underestimated their capabilities. Their evolutionary development on a high-gravity Deathworld has produced not merely physical resilience, but a problem-solving approach that defies conventional parameters. They appear to view obstacles not as barriers but as features to be exploited. Standard evaluation metrics may be insufficient to properly assess their potential contribution to Confederation security forces. I recommend immediate revision of all training protocols to incorporate these insights, as well as expansion of the human exchange program. In my professional assessment, we have much to learn from these Deathworlders. As he finalized the report, Vex received a notification from Lieutenant Zargeth. "Commander, the humans have organized what they call a welcome party in their quarters and have invited the senior staff." They mentioned something about cultural exchange and building bridges. Vex considered declining, but curiosity won out. I informed them I will attend briefly. Perhaps, he thought, there was more to these humans than met the eye, or all four of his eyes in his case. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now it seemed prudent to observe these fascinating creatures in their natural social environment. After all, if they approached recreation with the same intensity as combat training, it promised to be an educational experience indeed. The welcome party in the human quarters was unlike anything Commander Vex Talon had experienced in his 67 cycles of existence. The normally austere Academy residential section had been transformed through the strategic placement of colored lighting elements, strange decorative items, and what the humans called music, rhythmic sound patterns that vibrated at frequencies that made Vex's exoskeleton tingle uncomfortably. Commander, so glad you could make it, Cadet Jackson greeted him, pressing a container of liquid into his appendage. Try this. It's a traditional earth beverage, an alcoholic version, of course. We respect Academy regulations. Vex examined the clear container. What do you call this? Lemonade, Jackson replied. Citrus juice, water, and sweetener. Perfectly safe for your species according to the compatibility charts. Cautiously, Vex brought the liquid to his intake orifice and sampled a small amount. The sensory experience was explosive. Sourness hit first, followed by sweetness, an alarming combination that somehow became pleasant after the initial shock. Interesting, he managed. On my world, such contrasting flavors would indicate poison. Jackson laughed. On Earth, it indicates a hot summer day. Speaking of contrasts, we wanted to thank you for the combat simulation today. It was an excellent icebreaker. Icebreaker? Vex questioned, confused by the idiom. Sorry. A good way to start our exchange program, to get to know each other's capabilities, Jackson clarified. Across the room, Vex noticed Lieutenant Zargeth engaged in animated conversation with Cadet Donovan. The lieutenant's scales were fluctuating between excited orange and embarrassed purple, a concerning sign. Your lieutenant is quite interested in our medical technology, Donovan explained when Vex approached. I was just describing our emergency field procedures. Fascinating but primitive, Zargeth added. They still use manual blood vessel closure techniques, actual thread and needles to seal wounds. We call it stitching, Donovan said with a shrug. Sometimes the old ways work best, especially when you don't have access to molecular bonders or healing accelerators. But the pain response, Zargeth's scales pulsed a sympathetic blue. Pain is information, Donovan stated matter-of-factly. Useful information. Vex found this perspective disturbing yet intriguing. Throughout the evening, similar conversations unfolded, revealing aspects of human experience that challenged Confederation norms. The humans spoke casually about surviving in environments that would kill most sentient species, described recreational activities that involved deliberate risk, and recounted historical conflicts with casualty figures that made even veteran Academy instructors uncomfortable. Most disconcerting was their humor. They found amusement in scenarios involving potential harm or failure, often directed at themselves. One cadet described a training accident that had resulted in multiple fractures as a good learning experience, prompting laughter from the other humans. I don't understand, tactical instructor Grex Vor whispered to Vex. Are they mocking their own mortality? I believe, Vex replied slowly, they are demonstrating comfort with it. As the evening concluded, Cadet Jackson approached Vex once more. Commander, we appreciate the accommodations you have made for us, but we have a request regarding tomorrow's schedule. Go on, Vex said, bracing himself. We noticed the survival training exercise isn't scheduled until next month. We'd like to move it up, if possible. Our team is eager to experience alien environments firsthand. Exercise takes place on Dromos EE, Vex explained. A Class 4 hazardous planet with extreme temperature variations, toxic flora, and predatory fauna. It's deliberately scheduled late in the semester to allow cadets adequate preparation. Jackson nodded. Understood. Sounds like a standard weekend camping trip back home. But we respect your curriculum sequencing. The casual comparison to recreational activity was so absurd that Vex nearly missed the acquiescence. You accept the schedule as planned? Of course, Commander, Jackson replied with that unsettling human smile. We are guests here. But perhaps you'd consider allowing us to use the survival equipment for some practice sessions on station? Just to familiarize ourselves with your gear. That seems reasonable, Vex agreed, relieved by the modest request. I will authorize access to the equipment bay. As Vex departed the human quarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had somehow been maneuvered into a concession whose full implications he didn't understand. His suspicions were confirmed the next morning when he received an urgent message from the equipment bay supervisor. Commander, the humans have checked out all the survival gear, every single piece, and they have requested shuttle transport to Dromos EII's second moon for what they are calling field testing. Vex felt his hemolymph run cold. The moon? That's a desolate rock with minimal atmosphere. What could they possibly want to test there? They said, and I quote, "It's perfect for stress testing the equipment's capabilities in a low oxygen, extreme temperature environment with minimal resources. They have already filed a flight plan and safety protocols. Delay approval, Vex ordered. I want to speak with them personally." 30 minutes later, Vex confronted Cadet Jackson in the shuttle bay. The human stood calmly amid stacks of equipment, checking items against a holographic inventory. "Explain yourself, Cadet," Vex demanded. "This unauthorized expedition is fully within Academy guidelines for independent research and equipment validation," Jackson interrupted smoothly. Section 47, Paragraph 9 of the Academy Charter permits cadets to conduct supplementary training exercises with proper safety protocols and instructor notification. Vex clicked in frustration. The human had clearly studied the regulations. "Notification is not authorization, Cadet." "True," Jackson acknowledged. "But denial requires specific safety concerns that override educational benefit. Our safety protocols exceed minimum requirements by 43%. We have assigned buddy systems, established hourly check-ins, and limited exploration radius to 5 kilometers from the landing site. Plus, we have invited Academy instructors to observe." Indeed, Vex noticed tactical instructor Grex Vor and survival specialist Prill Nax already aboard the shuttle, examining human equipment with professional curiosity. "The environment on that moon reaches -70 degrees during lunar night," Vex pointed out. "That's why we are only staying during the 30-hour daylight period," Jackson countered. "Temperatures will range from -20 to +10, well within our operational parameters with proper gear." Vex realized he was fighting a losing battle. The humans had identified a regulatory loophole and exploited it perfectly, just as they had found unexpected paths through the combat simulation. "Very well," he conceded. "But I will be accompanying you personally." Jackson's expression brightened. "Excellent. We were hoping you would. Your expertise will be invaluable." 6 hours later, Vex stood on the barren surface of Dromos IE's second moon, questioning his decision-making capabilities. The landscape was a geologist's dream and a survival instructor's nightmare: jagged rock formations, steep ravines, and minimal resources. The thin atmosphere necessitated breathing apparatus for all species, though the humans seemed less encumbered by theirs than the instructors. The cadets had divided into teams, each with specific objectives: shelter construction, water location and purification, emergency signal establishment, and perimeter security. Academy instructors were paired with each team to observe and provide guidance if necessary. Vex accompanied the shelter team, led by Cadet Donovan. Rather than using the standard deployable habitats from their equipment, the humans were experimenting with natural materials supplemented by minimal gear. "The key to survival," Donovan explained as she expertly lashed support poles together, "is working with your environment, not against it. These rock formations provide natural windbreaks. We just need to create an insulated space within them." "But the equipment includes fully functional habitats," Vex pointed out. "Why not use them?" Because equipment fails, Commander, another cadet replied. What happens when your habitat generator malfunctions in an electrical storm? Better to know multiple methods. This pragmatic redundancy was a recurring theme. The water team located a subsurface ice deposit using scanning equipment, but then demonstrated 3 different methods to access and purify it without technology. The security team established an electronic perimeter but also created primitive alarm systems using local materials. Most impressive was the communications team. After establishing standard emergency beacons, they proceeded to construct a rudimentary analog transmitter using components harvested from non-essential equipment. This could send a basic signal to anything in orbit, explained Cadet Oliver Park, the team leader. No power cells, no quantum entanglement, just basic electromagnetic principles. It's not elegant, but it works. You deliberately cannibalized functional equipment to create a redundant system? Vex asked, horrified by the inefficiency. Absolutely, Park confirmed without hesitation. In a real emergency, I'd sacrifice any non-essential gear to increase communication options. One functioning transmission is worth more than 10 preserved devices if you are stranded. As Lunar Day progressed, the teams completed their objectives and gathered at the makeshift base camp. Despite the harsh conditions, the human spirits seemed unusually high. But they joked about the challenges, shared discoveries, and continued to modify their equipment for better performance. During a meal break, the humans consuming alarming amounts of high-calorie ration bars, Vex found himself seated beside Cadet Donovan. I must admit, he said reluctantly, your adaptability is impressive. Most Confederation species would struggle in these conditions, even with full equipment. Thanks, Commander, she replied, but honestly this is pretty tame compared to some training exercises back home. The Atacama Desert Survival Course? Now that's a challenge. 6 days, minimal water, temperatures from freezing to scorching within hours. You seek out these hardships voluntarily? Vex asked. Of course. How else do you discover your limits? She gestured at the barren landscape. Environments like this are honest. They don't care about your rank or species. They just test what you can actually do. There was wisdom in this perspective that Vex hadn't expected. After observing the humans in action, he was beginning to understand that their seemingly reckless approach masked a deeply practical philosophy. They trained for worst-case scenarios continuously, making the merely difficult seem routine. The expedition returned to Nexus Station without incident, though the Academy staff's perception of the human cadets had shifted noticeably. What had initially been viewed as primitive overtones of a Deathworld species was increasingly recognized as hard-earned practical knowledge. In the days that followed, the humans continued to disrupt Academy norms. During weapons training, they demonstrated proficiency with energy weapons but requested time with projectile arms as well, its technology considered obsolete by Confederation standards. Kinetic weapons don't suffer from electromagnetic interference, Cadet Jackson explained during a demonstration. Power requirements, simple maintenance, and ammunition can be manufactured from basic materials if necessary. The humans' focus on contingency planning extended to their academic studies as well. They absorbed Confederation tactical doctrine rapidly but consistently questioned single-solution approaches. In strategic simulations, they prioritized flexibility over efficiency, maintaining multiple options even at the cost of resources. 3 weeks into the semester, an opportunity to test these philosophies arose unexpectedly. During a routine training flight near the Dromos system, an Academy shuttle carrying 4 instructors and 3 alien cadets suffered catastrophic engine failure. The disabled craft managed a rough landing on Dromos EI itself, the hazardous planet whose survival training the humans had been eager to experience. The emergency beacon activated automatically, but rescue operations would be complicated by the planet's atmospheric conditions. Violent electrical storms interfered with precise transportation technology, necessitating a search and retrieval mission by conventional shuttle. Commander Vex was coordinating the rescue response when Cadet Jackson and his team arrived at the command center. We volunteer for the retrieval mission, Jackson stated without preamble. Absolutely not, Vex replied firmly. Dromos EE is a Class 4 hazardous environment. This is a job for experienced recovery specialists. With respect, Commander, Jackson countered, your specialists are accustomed to operating with full technological support. The conditions on Dromos will degrade that advantage. Our team has trained specifically for technology-limited extraction in hostile environments. Vex hesitated. The humans' assessment wasn't wrong. The Confederation's rescue protocols relied heavily on transportation beams, environmental shields, and other advanced systems that would function poorly in Dromos' ionized atmosphere. Additionally, added Cadet Donovan, 2 of the stranded instructors are Thracians. Eating their metabolic requirements in cold environments will demand immediate medical intervention. I have studied their physiology extensively. The argument continued until the Academy's director, Grand Admiral Zell Voth, intervened. The humans make valid points, the imposing Khazarian stated. I approve their participation with appropriate Academy oversight. Thus, a joint rescue team was assembled, 4 human cadets and 4 Academy specialists, equipped with both standard Confederation gear and the modified human equipment that had been tested on the Moon. The mission launched immediately, racing against the approach of Dromos IE's notorious storm season. Vex monitored their progress from the command center, anxiety mounting as the shuttle descended through turbulent atmospheric layers toward the crash site. Electrical interference increasing, reported the pilot. Navigation systems degrading. Position uncertainty expanding to 1 kilometer radius. Switching to visual confirmation protocols, responded Jackson's voice. Deploying optical enhancement array. This was a human modification, a network of simple reflecting surfaces extended from the shuttle to amplify visible light signals from the ground. Primitive but immune to electromagnetic interference. Visual confirmation of crash site, Jackson announced minutes later. Detecting emergency strobes at bearing 047. Surface conditions, problematic. Widespread chemical fires from local vegetation. Landing zone restricted. Vex felt his anxiety spike. Chemical fires were a notorious hazard on Dromos IE, where the silicon-based plant life burned at temperatures exceeding 1,200 degrees. Abort landing. Maintain orbital position and request additional resources, he ordered. There was a pause before Jackson's response. Being negative, Command. Storm front approaching would prevent follow-up missions for at least 30 hours. Stranded personnel have approximately 10 hours of breathable air remaining. We are proceeding with modified extraction. What modified extraction? Vex demanded. Instead of answering directly, Jackson switched to mission operational channels, issuing rapid commands to his team. The shuttle circled the crash site, mapping a narrow approach corridor between fire zones. We can't sustain hover in this atmosphere for more than 90 seconds, the pilot warned. Full landing is impossible. We don't need to land, Jackson replied. Just hold steady at 10 meters for 30 seconds. Harness team ready. Drop team prepared. To Vex's horror, the video feed showed 2 humans, Donovan and a cadet named Ryuki Tanaka, securing themselves to rappelling lines. As the shuttle briefly stabilized, they leapt from the open bay doors, descending rapidly toward the crash site. They are jumping into a fire zone, Vex exclaimed. Negative, corrected the Academy survival specialist monitoring environmental readings. They identified a temporal gap in the combustion pattern. The immediate landing zone will remain clear for approximately 4 minutes before the chemical reaction reaches it. Precisely timed, Vex realized. The humans had calculated exactly when and where to insert themselves safely, accepting razor-thin margins that most Confederation protocols would consider suicidal. The next 20 minutes were among the most tense of Vex's career. The extraction team worked with rehearsed precision, stabilizing injured personnel, securing them in specialized harnesses, and coordinating with the shuttle for sequential retrieval. When a sudden wind shift brought toxic smoke toward their position, the humans deployed filtration systems they had modified specifically for Dromos IE's atmosphere. The final extraction came with seconds to spare before the fire front engulfed the crash site. The shuttle, straining against atmospheric turbulence, successfully broke orbit and returned to Nexus Station with all personnel intact. 3 of the 7 crash survivors required immediate medical attention but would recover fully. In the mission debriefing, Grand Admiral Zell Voth asked what many were thinking, "How did you prepare so accurately for conditions you'd never experienced?" "We didn't," Jackson answered simply. "We prepared to be unprepared." Seeing the confusion this generated, Cadet Donovan elaborated, "Earth has thousands of distinct hazardous environments. We can't train specifically for each one, so we train to adapt to unknown conditions. The key isn't having the right plan, it's having the right principles and the ability to improvise." This philosophy, initially dismissed as primitive by many academy instructors, was suddenly recognized for what it truly was: evolutionary wisdom from a species that had survived one of the galaxy's most challenging worlds. In the weeks that followed, the academy curriculum underwent subtle but significant revisions. Human cadets were integrated into regular training groups rather than segregated. Their expertise in contingency planning, technology-limited operations, and adaptation was formally incorporated into several courses. 2 months after the dramatic rescue, Commander Vex Talon submitted his midterm evaluation of the Human Exchange Program to Confederation headquarters. The integration of human cadets has proceeded far more successfully than anticipated. While initial assessments focused on their physical resilience as products of a high-gravity Deathworld, their most valuable contribution has proven to be cognitive and philosophical. Humans approach survival not as a technological challenge, but as a mindset. Their evolutionary history on a planet that actively tried to kill them has produced not merely physical adaptations but cultural and intellectual frameworks optimized for uncertainty. They prepare for system failures we have been taught to consider impossible. They maintain skills our civilization abandoned generations ago. They find opportunities in conditions we classify as unsurvivable. Most significantly, they have begun to influence academy culture. Cadets of all species now routinely ask, "What if this fails?" A question that would have been considered needlessly pessimistic before the humans arrived. Training scores in adaptation exercises have increased 27% across all species. Resource efficiency has improved as cadets learn to distinguish between essential and luxury technologies. I therefore recommend immediate expansion of the Human Exchange Program and implementation of human survival methodologies throughout Confederation training protocols. While their technology may lag behind ours, their methodology for surviving technological failure represents a critical gap in our preparation. As one human cadet succinctly explained, advanced technology doesn't make you resilient. Knowing how to function without it does. This wisdom from Deathworld survivors may prove essential as the Confederation faces unknown future challenges. As he finalized the report, Vex received notification of yet another human-initiated training exercise, this one involving extended underwater operations. Despite himself, he found he was looking forward to discovering what impossible thing they would accomplish next. After all, as he had learned, when dealing with humans from Earth, the impossible was merely improbable, and the improbable was simply Tuesday.